respected present as well as the past leadership of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, my dear fellow members of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, other dignitaries, and my dear students. So, the time that I am having for this session, I will devote to give you a perspective on what is the global as well as the domestic thought process as regards putting a framework for sustainability related disclosures. We have heard about some of the provisions that are already there in the form of BRSR and some case studies of the BRSR reports also from the learned speakers who have spoken ahead of me. So, any securities market regulator, whether it is India, Asia Pacific region or anywhere in the globe, they have actually mainly three roles. First and foremost of it is the protection of the interest of the investors, and second and third are actually the development and regulation of the securities market. Now, in the context of protection of the interest of the investors, what securities market regulator normally do is that they mandate disclosures. So there is a famous dictum that in the securities market, sunlight is the best disinfectant. You all know that, like very simple example I can give you, if we expose ourselves to sunlight in the morning or in the evening, our body gains vitamin D. So similarly, in the case of securities market, that sunlight means that you are exposing the relevant information or material information to the attention of the investors or the stakeholders rather, because when we are coming to sustainability disclosures, it has to be a broader spectrum called stakeholders, so that they can arrive at decisions after assessing all the risk and opportunities that are there in that. Now, it is in this context that we should actually look into principle number 16 of the IOSCO standards and principles for securities regulation. So, IOSCO, just like the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements for the central banks, IOSCO is the global umbrella body for all the securities market regulators, and that is why SEBI also is a member of the IOSCO. IFSCA is there, that is also a member of IOSCO. So IOSCO Principle 16, it says that there shall be full, accurate and timely disclosure of financial results, risk and other information which is material to investors' decisions. So, in addition to financial results, what has to be provided to the investors are information about the risk and other information that are relevant for the investment decision. Now, all the climate-related disclosures, they are basically, as you must have understood by now, it's about the risk as well as the opportunities that emanate out of the climate change. Now, this is the Principle 16 of the IOSCO Objectives and Principles of Securities Regulation. And as I told you, since India is also a member of the IOSCO, so we also have to ensure that our regulatory regime is at least compatible to this global standard. We can actually excel beyond that. There is no question of anybody asking why for that one. But we cannot be seen as lagging behind. Now, it is in this context that we have to look at some of the other global bodies and their work. For example, we have all heard multiple times about the COP or the Conference of the Parties, especially the Glasgow Summit. But more than that one, there are actually from the top itself, from the top by that I mean the political leadership itself that has got involved in this exercise, and that comes in the form of the G20, Financial Stability Board, where the finance minister, the securities market regulator and the banking sector regulator of all the G20 member nations are present. And also, as I told you, IOSCO, which serves as the lead knowledge partner as regards securities market for these initiatives. Now, these three entities rather, they have taken some steps. For example, the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, they have actually undertaken work streams, and that has also been contributed to by the Network for Greening the Financial System and the International Platform on Sustainable Finance. Now, COP26, or the UN Climate Summit held in November 2021, it gave a big boost to sustainability-related issuer disclosures by promoting the implementation of a global corporate sustainability reporting architecture. Now, I emphasized November 2021 because, this was the time when almost everybody, and SEBI also had stipulated that it's no longer business responsibility reporting, it has to be business responsibility and sustainability reporting in the form of specifying the BRSR format. Now, the G7 finance ministers and central bank governors, in their communique of June 5, 2021, emphasized the need for the investors to have high quality, comparable and reliable information on climate risk. Now, these all things actually resulted in, as we have already heard, that the IFRS Foundation setting up or establishing the International Sustainability Standards Board, and the ISSB in turn came out with the two sustainability standards, S1 and S2, and that was in June 2023. And just deviating from my topic, but what is related to in the context of what the institute has done is that, so the global prescription from all these bodies was that there should be an international baseline disclosure requirements. Beyond that, every jurisdiction is free to adopt its own disclosures as regards sustainability disclosures are concerned. Now, it is in this context that the Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of India, they also have prepared the ISS 1 and ISS 2 and have already, brought in the public website, in the website of the institute, the exposure draft for public comments. So this is what actually, the thing is that a global baseline disclosure framework is put in by the ISSB. Every country can actually modify the sustainability disclosure requirements based on its own, country-specific factors. So it could be the availability of data, it could be the preparedness of the listed entities, because what we are talking about from the BRSR is the issuer-related disclosures. Now, two more things have happened subsequent to ISSB. I just go back to the ISSB thing. So one is that the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, it has published the International Standard on Sustainability Assurance. So ISSA 5000 has also been put in place. The International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants published the International Standards for Sustainability Assurance. So this happened very recently in January 2025. Now, it is in this background that we have all, heard about or experienced the BRSR format that SEBI has brought in. But just to connect with some of the events that have been mentioned here. So, at the turn of the millennium, the UN had the Millennium Development Goals, which actually concluded in 2015, but the progress was not so good. And because of that, the Millennium Development Goals gave way to what we have heard as the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, in the case of BRSR, before Sustainable Development Goals were there, it was the business responsibility reporting. So subsequent to UN coming out with the Sustainable Development Goals, Ministry of Corporate Affairs come out with the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, and also set up a committee to ensure that the listed as well as the unlisted entities, they are doing their sustainability disclosures, and for that purpose they wanted to prescribe a format. So that is again where, I would like to inform you about the role that our institute has played there. In the committee that was set up by MCA for the purpose of framing the draft BRSR format, all the three institutes, including the Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of India, they were represented along with SEBI. So what you are today hearing about BRSR, the report of the committee is available in the public domain. If you just open it, you can find and you can take comfort of the role that the institute has played in prescribing the format. Now, that draft format was released by the MCA. SEBI subsequently took the report for public consultation on its website, and subsequent to receiving the public consultation comments, we prescribed the BRSR for the listed companies. As has been mentioned, it was first year, it was on a voluntary basis. That was FY 21-22 for the top 1,000 companies. And it became mandatory from 22-23 financial year onwards. Now, here also, why 1,000? I have two answers. Why 1,000 companies or listed entities? The two answers are, as I told you, BRSR took the place of BRR, and BRR was applicable to 1,000 listed entities. Second, as you know, the share of the top 1,000 companies in terms of market capitalization is substantial. So the coverage of the necessity for filing the BRSR report, it almost covers the entire market capitalization. And for the paucity of time, I will not get into the contents, but there are three sections. General disclosures are there, management and process disclosures are there, but the main one, what we have heard in these case studies and all, are the part 3 or the section C, which are principle-wise performance disclosures. So it is against the 9 principles of the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct. And we have also identified within the BRSR something called BRSR Core, which actually covers the key performance indicators associated with all the 3 factors: environment, society, and governance. Another thing that I would like to mention is that we have come out with, till December, it was reasonable assurance. But to ensure that there is ease of doing business, to bring down the cost of compliance, and also to make it profession agnostic. So that is, again, I am telling all the members, it's not just the domain of any single profession, it's open to all. So to make it profession agnostic, now it is assessment or assurance. So there is an option there. Company, if it has, request or demand from its stakeholders, it can go for assurance, but assessment is also acceptable and it will be considered as proper filing. So that is again another thing that I would like to highlight for the attention of the members. And another thing, why 1,000? Now, just, I will take for instance 2 sectors. Automobiles, except the engine, almost every component might be coming from auto ancillary units. The steel may be coming from the, the sheets and all may be coming from the iron and steel companies, and all the things that you see inside, the interiors of the car, they are all manufactured by auto ancillaries. Now that is where, similarly, the next industry that I can tell is like, leather industry. So Bata, it doesn't have a manufacturing facility on its own. It's all, outsourced or subcontracting, and subject to passing the quality test, Bata puts its logo and sells it, and it applies to almost every other leather manufacturing company. Now, why I mentioned these 2 industries is that BRSR also will be applicable to the value chain partners. So whether it is the upstream, which are basically the suppliers of inputs or the materials to the listed entity, or the downstream, which are basically the consumers. So they are also required. But as of now, I mean, as I told you, from December 2024, disclosure of BRSR core for the value chain, it is on voluntary basis. But in the best interest of corporate governance, we expect that many companies will continue to do that one, and even that BRSR core for the value chain also is subject to assessment or assurance that is applicable to the listed entity. Now, if I have 2 minutes or 3 minutes, what is the global disclosure regime? I would like to share from the report of the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So this is a 2024 report called Global Corporate Sustainability Report. So this data is up to 2022 or 2023. So the total listed companies across the world, it was 43,970. So out of that 43,970 listed companies, with a total market capitalization of 98 trillion US dollars. So we were talking about Vikasit Bharat, but our today's GDP is approximately about $4 trillion. But these 44,000 odd companies, they had a total market capitalization of 98 trillion US dollars. So it includes the Indian companies as well as the India's market capitalization also. Now, the companies that disclosed sustainability related information, it was numbering 9,600, and those companies, they accounted for 86% of the total global stock market capitalization. So that is what actually, I would like to put for your attention in the first place. The second thing is that 6,308 companies representing 77% of the stock market capitalization disclosed Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions in 2022. And only companies representing 60% of the market capitalization, they disclosed the Scope 3 emissions in 2022. An external service provider assures the sustainability disclosure of almost 66% of the companies that have disclosed sustainability related information by market capitalization. And among the companies that disclose the name of the independent assurance provider, 82% of the sustainability reports were assured by an auditor and the rest by other assurance providers. And the last point that I have for you is that among the 2,957 sustainability reports subject to an independent assurance, 1,668, that is 56% of the total, they were partially or fully verified under limited assurance, while 405, 14% were partially or fully verified under reasonable assurance. So this is what actually, the conditions that have been put in place in India in the form of the BRSR report. I have put before you the global scenario. And thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for giving me a patient hearing.